Welcome to Live Life with Sean. I'm your host, Sean Higgins. I'm a lifelong information security technology expert with a passion for speaking, coaching, and writing. In this podcast, I'm going to tell you stories of what I've gone through in my life. And I'm hoping that by me sharing my stories will help you with whatever you're going through. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it, subscribe to it, like it, and or leave a comment, as this will help others find this podcast. Thank you for joining me. And this week, I want to talk about, if you've ever had anything that really pushed you so far out of your comfort zone that you almost didn't do it. How many times have you not pushed through? Did you wish you had? And when you just pushed through, was it amazing? I had an experience like this with one of the coaching programs that I took. There were a couple of times when it, wanted to set up some roadblocks for me. One time that really pushed my buttons and I pushed through and it was amazing. Let me tell you that story. It all started when I started listening to a radio show called Everything is Energy. During that show, I became familiar with one of the show's hosts, David Morelli. I don't recall how I found this particular radio show, but it drew me in. The most interesting part of each show was that David would take on a caller and energetically work on a problem the caller was having. He would ask them about their issue, listen to them, and then look at the energy of the problem. He would use the information in the energy to zero in on the issue. Because sometimes the issue was not what the person described, but there was some underlying energy really causing the issue. After getting clarity on the issue and getting agreement with the caller, David would use an energetic tool to help the person move past their issue, and the caller would feel better immediately. As I listened week after week, I started to get this knowing deep within me that if David taught what he was doing, I was going to have to take the course. I don't know why I was drawn to this, because this seems so out there. I mean, it was so different than my usual grounded in technology life and career. But with each show, I knew more and more clearly that if he taught it, I needed to take it. Then one week, they said that on the next show, they were going to make a big announcement. I had a feeling that this was the moment. I tried to listen to the show live, but work got in the way, and I was unable to listen to the recording until the weekend. I remember finally being able to find some time when I could listen to the show. I was doing some activities around the house, working in the yard on a Saturday. As I was walking around the yard, doing whatever, I was listening to the show. Towards the end of the show, they made the big announcement. And yes, David was going to teach how he reads energy. David went into the details on how the program would be taught. There'd be a weekly group teaching call, followed up by another call with smaller groups to allow us to practice. He talked about a number of in-person gatherings, and all of this started getting me excited. I liked the idea. Small groups, practice, in person. It was all exciting until the end of the call. And at the end of it, he announced the price, and my excitement started to fade. At this point, I started to question that knowing if David taught the course, I would need to take it. I was feeling a tightness in my gut. How was I going to afford this? This is a lot of money. I cannot pay this money. Because in my mind, I had a price of what I was willing to pay for the course, and this was well above that amount. I started to feel sad and disappointed that I could not afford the course. But I took a deep breath and I thought to myself, You said if David taught the course, you would take it. And I breathed again and said, you said if David taught the course, you would take it. And I just breathed. And at that point, I stopped everything that I was doing around the yard. I went into the house and I signed up for the course. I had no idea what I was really getting into or how I was going to pay for it, but I knew deep down inside me that I needed to take this course. The next step out of my comfort zone was that the first session for this program was a 3-day event in Denver. It was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which meant I always had to take the Monday off to travel home. This again was out of my comfort zone for two reasons. First, I'd never taken training where I had to take time off from work. And second, I'd be leaving my family to do it. Now, this may not sound like a big deal for most people, but for me, my priorities in my life at this time were number 1 was work, number 2 was family, and 3 was wait for 1 or 2 to need me. In this case, I was going to be putting myself first. Big breath. It's very hard to explain the trip to Denver on that Friday morning. I was buzzing with excitement from the moment I left the house to head to the airport. It was an excitement that I had never felt before. I was just buzzing. I was buzzing so much that when I got to Starbucks at the airport, the barista said, you better come back tomorrow because I want some of the energy that you have. I never realized that the energy that I had was having so much of an effect on the people around me at that time. I remember arriving at the hotel and how easy it was to spot the other students in the program because their energy was so high and they were buzzing just like I was. Everybody was so excited about the program and the chance to meet David. The session started Friday afternoon, and I think the moment David walked in the room, I didn't think the energy could get higher, but it got a lot higher. As he talked, I was just amazed at the information he was explaining, how everything was energy, how science had done quantum experiments to show you could change something over here and it would have an effect over here and so on. And all this stuff made sense. It was so scientific, so real, so quantifiable. Everything was going great until he said, okay, turn to the person next to you and read their energy. And when he said that, it felt like a weight had just been dropped right over my body. How could he ask us to read another person's energy without explaining how to do it? Up until this point, he had talked about energy. He had done a little bit of energy work on a few people, but nothing to explain what he was doing. I took a big breath and I turned to the person next to me. David said, you have 4 minutes to read their energy. Go. I said 4 words and laughed for the next 3 minutes and 59 seconds. The laughing was really just to cover up how scared I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to expect. I just had no idea. And I was just afraid of what the other person might think of what I said. What if I made a mistake? What if I was totally wrong? And the laughing was just a way for me to cover up my fear. It seemed like those 3 minutes and 59 seconds went on for an hour. And thankfully, that was the last thing we did on Friday night. I was so afraid of having to do more of that I almost did not come back on Saturday. I was so scared and unsure. I started to question, how could he make us read another person's energy? How could I read their energy? This was so out there. I understand the science he was explaining, but reading the energy just, I don't know, it just felt so different. I saw him help others, but I thought he was special in that sense. I thought he had trained for years to be able to do this. How could I do this with no experience? My mind was just racing as I tried to go to sleep Friday night. I finally made it to sleep, and well, like all days, the sun came up the next morning. I got up, I went for a walk, I wandered around Denver, taking in the views around the hotel, and just decided to give it one more try. What else was I going to do? I was here until Monday when my flight was leaving, so I might as well attend. And as David started on Saturday morning, I was still on edge. I kept saying to myself, and my head down, please don't make us do any more practices. Please don't make us do any more practices. Please don't make us do any more practices. I had no idea how I was going to be able to do it, but I just prayed that he wasn't going to make us do any more. He started talking about auras, and I had heard about auras. I kind of understood the idea behind a person's aura, their energy field that surrounds their body. And at one time in my life, I probably felt somebody's aura. And then he said, we're going to clean another person's aura. And he explained that to clean an aura, we would put our hands on a person's aura and then move them around the outside of the aura. I'm thinking, okay. I kind of know this idea of an aura. I think I may have felt one at some point in my career. And I don't have to say anything. That was a big plus. I thought I might be able to feel the aura, and I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings by what I have to say. So let's give it a try. I found a partner. She sat in a chair in front of me, and I stood back and then put my hands up. I stepped closer until I thought I felt the aura and just started to move them around. As I moved my hands around, I started to relax. I started to get into it. I started to feel like I was cleaning a glass bubble. I just moved my hands around, moved my body around the person to make sure I got all sides of the aura, and before I knew it, our time was up. I was like, wow, pretty cool. After we finished, David explained that when we work with somebody's energy, we tend to leave some of our energy in their space. So he said, remove your energy from their aura. I said, okay. I stood back and looked at the aura, and to my amazement, I saw streaks on the aura. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, of course I see streaks. I just cleaned glass. I asked for my energy to come back to me, and the streaks went away. I was like, wow, that was amazing. I never thought working with energy could be so easy. From that point on, I just relaxed and went with whatever we were doing. It seemed at that point that I just suspended all belief and limitations that I had put in my place about working with energy. I remember one exercise, we were supposed to be reading the layers of somebody's aura, and each aura was supposed to be a color. Well, for one of the layers, I didn't get a color, I got a pumpkin. I have no idea what a pumpkin had to do with somebody's aura layer. But I said, what the heck? I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to keep talking and just keep talking about what I see. And I'm like, could it be the orange? Could it be the ribs or lines in the pumpkin? And I just kept talking, and eventually the pumpkin rotated. And as it rotated, the pumpkin turned, and I noticed that carved into the pumpkin was a wonderful, welcoming smile. And this led me to explain to the person that she was a welcoming person, or she had a welcoming personality that invited people into connection with her. To my surprise, when we were done, she thanked me for the reading and how in alignment it felt with her. Whew. Each time we did something different with energy, and each time I could feel the fear wanting to come up and tell me, don't do this, don't do this. But I just took a deep breath and decided to give it a try anyway. The breath helped me relax and loosen up my fear, and kept wanting me to kept loosening up that fear that wanted to build up in me. And each time I stepped into the energy, I was amazed with what came through me. On Sunday, when it was all over, people lined up to talk to David. It appeared that many of them had questions about one thing or another, but I was just so grateful for the experience that I didn't know why I would want to talk to David. As I sat there and, watched the people around the room, interacted with a few people, I let other people get their time with David. Then I felt, why don't I just go up and thank him? Just tell him how much fun I had and thank him for the weekend. So I got in line. And when it was my turn, I just thanked him for an amazing experience. And he turned to me and he said, "You rocked it." I was just floored. I had had a good time, but I didn't think I was that good. And didn't he know that I almost didn't show up on Saturday because of my failure that I had with the first exercise? Wow, it's just amazing. How many times in your life have you let fear stop you from doing something that you knew you needed to do? How many times did you push through anyway? Which was better for you? I know there have been times where I've let fear stop me. And I'm really glad that this was not one of those experiences. Thank you for joining me on Live Life with Sean. If you enjoy this show, please share it, subscribe to it, like it, and/or leave a comment, as this will help others find Live Life with Sean. Thank you for joining me, and until next week, have a wonderful week.